Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. First off, I want to apologize for the delay in the uploads. I've been busy with some stuffs lately, but wow, so much has been happening in Grand Saga Global. It's hard to know where to begin. No worries, I'm here to catch you up and guide you through everything you need to know. So let's jump right in. I've been getting a lot of questions lately about building your characters, like which Gran Weapon to use, which artifact to equip, and so much more. So today, I want to share my insight on how I build my team. Just a quick disclaimer though, I'm not the best player out there. There are plenty of amazing players who know even more about the game than I do. But my goal here is to help those of you who might feel a little lost and don't know where to start. So without further ado, let's begin. Let's start with PvE Artifact. It's very important to have an increased attack type artifact. So if you don't have Sky Guardian, you can swap it for Bride's Tears. Either works fine. Crit damage artifact like Tahama or Never Ending War. I chose crit damage because I was able to raise my critical chance to around 75%. So if you have less than that, you could swap this out with elemental types artifact like Raging Flames for fire type characters, Longing for Clear Skies for wind types, and so on. Black Witch Hat tool that increase magic damage is great as well since Quyi is a magic type character. If your character is physical type, then you can use the Dominator artifact that increase physical damage. Crazed Evil Eye is a must-have for boss fights as it boosts boss damage significantly. Lastly, you have the Call to Arms artifact that increase your critical chance since it's very important to deal critical damage at all times to maximize your DPS. I think that covers the ideal artifacts you need to use at least on PvE content. Regarding PvP content, this greatly depends on what build you're trying to do. There's no default build for PvP since PvP builds are much more personalized depending on your strategy and team composition. For example, my Karte, I built him around evasion and just critical. Since Karte has a great evasion stats, so I choose to use artifact that increase evasion, critical, damage, and most important is dexterity. Now, dexterity is quite important in PvP. Not only it can make you go first, it also gives you a cooldown reduction. The maximum we can get is a 15%. So you are free to use this dexterity artifact to any of your units depending on your strategy. Personally, I'd like to use them on my close combat characters that inflicts crowd control to my enemies like Karte and Fu Xiao, which really works great. For those of you who wants to build a tank character for PvP, I'd highly recommend to use an HP artifact like Selena's Heart, which is great, but if you don't have it, it's okay, you can use Sacred Tree Whisper instead. I'd like to add critical resistance artifact because almost all players build their characters to have high critical chance. I got lucky and got this SSR artifact. If you don't have it, it's okay, you can use the Broken Throne instead. Increasing your defense is a must, so King's Last Stand is a nice choice. Lastly, you can use increased block rate or dexterity artifact here. But wait a minute, won't we get sucked by your opponent's crowd control? Well, yes, that depends on how you build your team. So for example, you have Karte with Varak Gran Weapon. This passive provides your team air resistance so your characters won't get the airborne status. That means you don't need to equip an artifact that provides airborne resistance. Now, if you have Karte with Varak's Gran Weapon, you can skip equipping this type of artifact. If not, consider adding it as a PvP is full of Fu Xiao players. Always remember, PvP builds are highly situational and depends on your team composition, gear, and strategy. My PvP setup includes Karte, Fu Xiao, and Quyi, with Fu Xiao built as semi-tank. I decided not to invest heavily in her banner because I'm saving my diamonds for Orta. Unfortunately, I'm not a whale, so I can't afford to splurge on Fu Xiao even though she's an incredibly strong character. I guess that concludes everything about Artifact. Next up, let's talk about accessories and Arcane Items. Regarding accessories, use the one that enhance your character's abilities. For instance, the Ring of Explosion increased AoE skill damage, making it particularly useful for Quyi since nearly all of her skills are AoE based. The Ring of Elements increased type damage by 30%, making it perfect for elemental advantage matchup. For example, if you're facing a wind element boss and using a fire type character since fire counters wind, this ring is an ideal choice. The wedge ring, on the other hand, boosts single target skill damage. This is ideal for characters like Glass and Namarie. Just make sure to check the skill description for any mention of deal single target damage to make the most of it. Next, we have the Nightmare ring. It's very powerful, but it's not as effective in boss fight since bosses tends to have a higher HP, making it harder to benefit from its effects. However, it works excellently in story battles and is very strong in PvP. Moving on, we have the Ring of Fury. For PvP, this is amazing. It grants invulnerability for 4 seconds when in near-death state. It also increases your attack by 20%, potentially turning a loss into a win. There's also a ring called the Ring of Revival, which functions similarly to the Ring of Fury. The key difference is that while the Ring of Fury increases your attack, this ring restores 15% of your HP instead. Regarding Arcane Items, it's very simple. For PvE, prioritize items that increase damage against boss monsters. This includes increased crit damage against bosses, compatibility damage, to maximize your damage output when facing bosses. For PvP, focus on enhancing critical chance, single or multi-target damage, and defense to improve both of your offensive and defensive capabilities. And that concludes our guide on artifacts, accessories, and arcane items. Moving on, let's dive into which Gran Weapons are ideal for both PvP and PvE. So let's begin with Quyi. For PvE, I've been fortunate enough to obtain all of Qiyi's Gran Weapons. However, if you don't have them all, there are still viable alternatives. Samael is a crucial Gran Weapon for Quyi, providing immense power and utility. Not only enables her to deal substantial damage, but also applies a defense debuff on enemies through its general and switch skills, significantly enhancing her effectiveness in both offense and defense. Next up is Seriade. This Gran Weapon is available for free through Potential Node, making her an excellent option. Don't underestimate her though. Her slimes frequently outdamage other Grand Weapons in extended battles. Next is Avery. She can put enemies in airborne state with her skills, preventing them from acting, which is useful for controlling large enemy groups. Her passive boosts the party's damage, especially with elemental advantages. Additionally, her Unleashed skill adds a debuff that increases magic damage taken, enhancing magic attackers like Quyi. Then we have Telemis. Her skill have a wide attack range, allowing efficient progress through the main quest by damaging multiple enemies at once, especially in the early stages. Her passive also boosts magic damage by 15%, making it a great fit for Quyi. There are other great substitutes like Ailey. Her turret summons are invaluable for providing supplementary damage. Additionally, Ailey provides snare resistance, which can be useful against certain bosses. Akenat is another solid alternative that boosts magic damage and reduces MP cost. This is pretty useful for increasing overall efficiency in battles. Now let's move on which Gran Weapon should you use for PvP. Now, Telemis is one of the best for PvP since she's capable of dealing massive damage with her Unleashed skill, often wiping out enemies. Avery excels at inflicting the airborne status effect, disrupting opponents effectively, while Seriade adds a valuable utility by providing a shield and summoning untargetable slimes for enhanced sustainability. Inferni also offers a strong PvP option with her ability to silence enemies, while Ailey provides a snare resistance, which is particularly useful in specific matchups. Moving on, let's go to Seriade. For PvE, I would strongly suggest Habaek as he offers incredible buffs, including increased damage, faster LP generation for Unleashed skills, and a passive that boosts Unleashed skill damage. No doubt that he's the most important in Seriade's kit. Next is Dolores. She is a free Gran Weapon that you can unlock through Potential Node as well. Her skill provides health regeneration and the ability to resurrect allies with her Unleashed skill. She's invaluable for both PvE and PvP content, as she offers excellent utility. I also use Vela, especially in hard mode, for her healing recovery, which is essential against bosses with massive HP and damage output. Her passive boosts recovery by 25%, making her a reliable source of sustainability. Pacey is another great option, as she provides shields that are incredibly helpful in both PvE and PvP scenarios. For optimal healing, consider equipping Seriade with artifacts that enhance recovery and boost attack, as this will amplify her support potential. I've avoided using Hyfox and Aisha despite having their dupes, since I haven't built Seriade for DPS yet, which might change with the upcoming guild boss content. Aisha, in particular, isn't ideal for my playstyle because her Unleash skill locks you out of using other skills temporarily. If you have her, I'd recommend duping her for the Soul Link stats and move on. There are better options available. However, since they changed the guild boss to Fire Element, I don't know why they did that. Knowing that we only have Seriade for our Water Element character, I guess we don't have a choice but to use Aisha along with Aquila as our main DPS for the upcoming guild boss. For PvP setup, Habaek remains a staple choice for PvP, providing essential buffs and increased Unleash skill damage. Dolores is a must-have in any scenario due to her health regeneration and resurrection ability, ensuring your team stays alive longer. Pacey is an excellent option, offering shield and passive stun resistance, which can be crucial in PvP battles. Hyfox shines here with her ability to slow enemies, allowing you to act first and gain an advantage. If you don't have Hyfox, consider Vela for extra healing or Churney for crowd control, since Churney's bubble status skill is comparable to Airborne, providing additional control over your enemies. That wraps it up for Seriade's PvP setup. Now let's move on to Lass. Ingrid is a core Gran Weapon for Lass, offering a strong sustain through lifesteal. However, to benefit from this effect, you'll need at least T1 Ingrid. This makes him essential for long fights where survival is key. Next is Magnus. He is a free Gran Weapon and another crucial pick. His passive boosts your team's attack by 10%, and his skill increases your crit chance by 30%, making him a versatile choice for both PvE and PvP. Together, Ingrid and Magnus form the backbone of any Lass setup, remaining relevant even in the late game. Mertes is another powerful option, as her passive has a chance to inflict Ignite, which increases the damage taken by enemies. Additionally, her Unleash skill creates a burning area that deals continuous damage, adding significant AoE pressure. Baljard, unfortunately, is one of the weaker options for Lass. Even after awakening, his effectiveness is limited because his skills are mostly impactful only when the enemy is below 50% HP. For better alternatives, consider using Flamingo for enhanced performance against wind-type enemies. Flora, which boosts death and increased physical damage, offer better utility. This combination ensures a balance of damage output and survivability, optimizing Lass for PvE setup. For PvP, Mertes is essential for PvP due to her wide AoE skill that knocks down opponent, providing excellent crowd control. This makes her a perfect fit for PvP-focused strategies. Magnus and Ingrid remain strong staples in PvP, offering a team-wide buffs and sustainability. Pritya is a solid defense option, increasing HP by 1000 and an additional 5%, making your Lass a bit tanky. Flora excels in PvP as well, with her buffs providing both increased defense and physical damage. Lastly, consider Flamingo to reduce your opponent's LP by 25%, limiting their ability to unleash their strongest skills. And that wraps up for Lass. Moving on to Karte. Zerka is a powerhouse for PvE, transforming grants a massive 30% evasion, 80% increase in critical chance, plus 350 attack and 20% cooldown reduction. Additionally, Zerka's skills boost crit damage by 20%, providing an incredible array of buffs. Iris and Arc are top tier choices, offering an increased critical chance to your entire team. While they shine more in PvP, their passive remains valuable for PvE setup that rely on high critical rate. Varak and Nanette are more PvP focused Gran Weapons. Varrock can still be useful in PvE, especially for bosses where air resistance is crucial. If you have duplicates of Varrock, he becomes a viable option. Cecilia is an excellent for PvE due to her ability to reduce skill cooldown by 1 second for every critical hit. Combined with Zerka, this lets you spam skills for maximum damage output. For boss-specific setups, consider replacing Varrock with Mika or Darva. Mika boosts boss damage by 50%, while Darva, though a rare Gran Weapon, increases boss critical damage by 35%. Either can greatly enhance your performance in boss fights depending on your needs. For PvP content, Varrock is an excellent choice for PvP, providing air resistance and snare effect. Snare immobilizes opponents, prevents skill usage, and pause their PvP turn gauge, allowing you to take another turn before they can act. Nunette shines in PvP by reducing opponents' LP by 40%, delaying their ability to use unleashed skills. Additionally, her passive boosts your LP by 20% at the start of PvP battles, enabling you to unleash your strongest skills much faster. Iris in Arc excel even more in PvP. Beyond their crit chance passive, their skill grants an additional PvP turn for every critical hit, effectively letting you act again after dealing a critical damage. Lastly, Damian is another standout for PvP. His passive increases your team dexterity by 15%, a crucial stat for PvP. His skill summons an illusion that taunts opponents, disrupting their strategy and forcing them to target it instead. That's it for Karte. Up next, let's talk about Wyin. Wyin might look like a traditional tank, but for a hard mode content, especially against water bosses, you'll need to build him as a damage dealer. These bosses can be a significant challenge if Wyin isn't optimized for damage output. Many players, included myself, have struggled with these fights. So special thanks to the Grand Saga English Community Discord for their tips and guidance. For PvE setup, number 1 is Vesa. His skill reduces enemy defense by 10% and prevents them from gaining shield. His Unleashed skill reduces enemy defense by 20% up to 30% at T5 and applies shield prevention, while his passive grants burn resistance. Vesa is essential for reducing enemy defense and maximizing your team's damage output. Next is Savina. She is free via potential node and she provides thorn buffs that reflect damage back to the enemies. Her passive increases your team's defense by 15%, which is invaluable for surviving top fights. Next is Nelly. Nelly is an SR Gran Weapon focused on pure damage. She's perfect for hard mode where damage is crucial. Her passive also gives slow resistance. Moving on to Zenace, her skill boosts block damage reduction by 25%, offering great survivability. She also deals respectable damage, making her a solid choice. You can also consider Partani if you need additional defense. Her skill boosts the defense of all allies in range by 35%, and her passive further enhances block damage reduction, making her a solid choice for survivability in tougher battles. So why not Sylvano? While Sylvano may seems like a viable option, his kit doesn't deal direct damage, making him less effective in hard mode where bosses have massive HP pools. Damage is the priority, so Sylvano isn't recommended here. For PvP setup, you can use Sylvano here. This is where he shines since he gives you increased block rate by 30% and an increased attack by 320 and full HP recovery upon transformation, while his passive gives you a 3% shield upon blocking a skill. This makes your Wyin a solid choice for tanking in PvP. However, keep in mind that Fuxiao is a common pick in PvP and her wind element can easily counter Wynn's earth, potentially demolishing him. This means you'll need to bolster your defense to remain competitive. A strong partner for Wyin is Helena, whose skill inflict knockdown for 5 seconds, with her unleashed skill extending the duration. Her passive increases block rate by 10% and when combined with Sylvano's buffs, your block rate will be quite formidable. Honestly, Wyin without a Helena can struggle in PvP as the crowd control she provides is crucial for surviving Fuxiao's onslaught. Another excellent option is Zenace, who complements the team by enhancing block rate and providing additional utility. Her passive ensures a 100% chance to taunt enemies for 7 seconds when the PvP battle starts, forcing opponents to focus on Wyin. Finally, consider using Largo for his taunt skill and synergy with the tanking strategies. His passive reduces damage taken from taunted enemies by 20%, making him a strong addition to a tank-focused PvP setup. And that's pretty much it for Wyin. Lastly, we have Namarie. For PvE, Theodora is essential for Namarie due to her incredible buffs. Every 3 basic attacks, she increases your damage by 40%. She also gives you a defense negation by 20%, an increased attack by 370 and basic attack speed. Additionally, her passive boosts crit chance by 8% against Earth-type monsters, making her ideal for such encounters. Zertion is another powerhouse, offering a 15% team damage boost. His skill deals massive damage thanks to the headshot effect, which hits for 60% of your attack power, making him a must-have for consistent damage output. For the remaining 2 slots, it depends on the situation. Sylphid provides a petrified resistance and solid damage, increasing output by up to 35% based on the number of enemies nearby. Blessilla offers a shock resistance, adding some survivability, while Filmo excels against Earth-type enemies, boosting damage by 30% and increasing normal monster damage by 17%, making him perfect for AFK farming with Namarie, who shines in that role. Finally, for PvP setup, Guerilla can be strong choice but only at P5 as her potential shines with higher duplicates. However, many players don't recommend her until she reaches that level. For more universal option, Theodora and Zertion remain solid due to their raw damage and buffs. If you prefer crowd control, consider using these two. Barca, who inflicts the airborne status effect, disabling enemies effectively, and Luna, whose skill stuns enemies, providing a valuable crowd control in PvP. And that concludes our Gran Weapon guide. So after you watch this video, this is what your standard DPS should look like. Special thanks to Kratil for creating this standard DPS setup and allowing me to use it as reference. Regarding the new updates, today we got the Black Friday Deal Shop, also known as Guerilla Shop. It offers a variety of items available for both free and paid diamonds. Personally, I'm a bit disappointed with the offerings, so I guess I'll just settle for the Golden Royal Order to farm more materials. However, that's fine because they've finally relaunched the Captain Invitation event, where you can get a lot of free pulls, around 600 to 700 sacred tree fruits just by inviting a new player who has completed up to chapter 5 of the story. So for those who still haven't used the code yet, please consider using mine. I'll leave it in the description below, and if you do, thank you so much in advance. And that wraps up today's guide and updates. I hope this detailed breakdown of artifacts, accessories, arcane items, and Gran Weapons gives you the tools to optimize your characters for both PvE and PvP content. Always remember, every team is unique, so feel free to adjust your strategies based on what works best for you. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!